Right now, you're probably unaware you have something called an upper limit problem. We're going to talk about what that is and how to fix it today. Stay tuned. This episode of Keeping It Real is brought to you by Real Geeks. How many homes are you going to sell this year? Do you have the right tools? Is your website turning soft leads into interested buyers? Are you spending money on leads that aren't converting? Well, Real Geeks is your solution. Find out why agents across the country choose Real Geeks as their technology partner. Real Geeks was created by an agent for agents. They pride themselves on delivering a sales and marketing solution so that you can easily generate more business. Their agent websites are fast and built for lead conversion with a smooth search experience for your visitors. Real Geeks also includes an easy-to-use agent CRM. So once a lead signs up on your website, you can track their interest and have great follow-up conversations. Real Geeks is loaded with a ton of marketing tools to nurture your leads and increase brand awareness. Visit realgeeks.com/keepingitrealpod and find out why realtors come to Real Geeks to generate more business. Again, visit realgeeks.com/keepingitrealpod. And now, onto our show. Today's episode is brought to you by Corded.io. Are you looking for agents to join your brokerage or team? Now, as a real estate recruiter, I can tell you the answer is always yes. But most agents aren't looking to move right now. So how do you know who to contact? Well, what if I were to tell you there's a recruiting and retention tool powered by artificial intelligence that shows you exactly which agents in your local market are looking to leave their brokerage right now and which agents at your own firm are also looking to leave you? Now, I've been recruiting realtors for 15 years and I've hired over 2,000 agents. I can tell you with no exaggeration, this is the tool I've been waiting for. Corded's AI looks for trends across dozens of variables for each agent in your market and shows you which agents they believe are likely to move. Not only does it do that, but Corded's AI went and visited my recruiting website and read everything I offer. So now when I'm recruiting, Corded's AI tells me exactly what to say based on that agent's needs and what my brokerage can offer. It even writes emails for me. I've never seen anything like it, and I use it every single day. Now, if you are looking to grow your brokerage, Corded.io is the best tool out there. Visit Corded.io to schedule a demo. Again, that's Corded.io. And now, onto the show.
Welcome to the inner game of real estate success, the show that gives you the tools to master your mind, close with confidence, and thrive in both business and life. I'm your host, Paul Salter. I'm a mindset and performance coach, and I use hypnosis to help my clients get out of their own way by dismantling the destructive patterns of thinking, feeling, believing, and behaving that are keeping them stuck. If you feel like you're doing everything right, but still not getting the results you want, you're in the right place. On the last Thursday of each month, join me to explore the mental and emotional patterns that hold even the top producers back, and more importantly, how to eliminate them for good. You'll learn how to overcome fear, perform under pressure, and avoid burnout so that you can show up as your best self in every conversation, every deal, and every single day. Well, hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to join you once again, my third time here on the Keeping It Real podcast. Again, every month, we're doing a deep dive into your inner experience. Some of you may have an inner experience that is chaotic, filled with turmoil, fear, tension, tightness, anxiety. The list goes on and on. And although I'm here to validate and tell you that's part of the normal human experience, it's part of the entrepreneurial journey, it's part of becoming the best version of yourself, I'm also here to tell you that action alleviates anxiety. Action accelerates results. And without further ado, we're going to dive in to today's conversation. And the seed I'm going to plant that I want your subconscious to begin nourishing throughout this conversation and in the many days and weeks to come is the following. Consider this. The reason that you are stuck at a particular level of income, success, or happiness is because you are putting a cap, a limit on how much money, success, love you are worthy, deserving, and capable of achieving and experiencing. You are capping yourself. You are limiting yourself. And I want you to imagine this. Imagine that your success, your income, your happiness, as the temperature in your home, and your internal beliefs about each one of those as the thermostat that controls it. When your thermostat is set to a certain temperature, let's say 72 degrees, it's designed, it's programmed to maintain that level of comfortability, predictability, familiarity. If the temperature in your home rises above 72 degrees, well, you and I both know what happens. The thermostat kicks on to cool things down and bring the temperature back to the level you previously set it at. And conversely, if it gets too cold, the thermostat will heat things up to reach that same level, in this case, 72 degrees, that you previously set it at. Well, in the context of our discussion today, that thermostat represents your internal belief about how much money, success, happiness you deserve. And this setting is based on your past experiences, your self concept, and of course, your deep rooted fears. When you achieve more money, more success, more happiness than your internal thermostat allows for, you begin to unconsciously cool things down by engaging in self-sabotaging behaviors such as procrastination, creating conflict, making mistakes. The list goes on and on. And these actions inevitably bring your income, your success, your happiness back down to a level you're comfortable with. I want you to consider that for a moment and just allow your mind to drift here. Where in your life, currently or recently in the past, have you started to taste next level wealth, next level success, next level happiness, only to find that you inevitably started to sabotage so that you ultimately remained in that 2-step forward, 3-step backward pattern? This unconscious, self-imposed limitation can be thought of as an invisible cap to your success. And fortunately for you and myself, there is a breadth of research, psychology, and literature on this very phenomenon. And this phenomenon is known as the upper limit problem. An upper limit problem is a psychological phenomenon that describes the unconscious experience of feeling that there's a limit to how much money, success, love, happiness you can achieve. Now, think about that. What I'm suggesting here sounds completely irrational. You might be wondering to yourself, like, wow, this guy's freaking crazy. Like, he's trying to tell me that I'm the one intentionally limiting how much wealth, success, happiness, love, whatever it may be, I can have. You're calling BS on me. And I hear you. But I want you to remember, first and foremost, your subconscious is irrational. It's like a 5-year-old emotionally charged child operating with a handful of different emotions that change by the second in the driver's seat of your decisions and actions, and incredibly irrational. Second, your subconscious has one objective. That is to keep you safe. How does it keep you safe? It keeps you in an environment, in a pattern of comfortability, predictability, and familiarity. The moment you start to step outside your comfort zone, you start to raise your income, raise your level of success, experience more happiness. Red flags, something is triggered. Your subconscious is put on notice and it deploys several sneaky, crafty, creative forms of self sabotage to bring you back down to that level of income, happiness, and success that's already familiar. It already knows you're safe there. So here is how the upper limit problem may begin or may already have shown up in your life. For some of you listening, it looks like, it sounds like fear of success, fear of failure, fear of change. It may manifest as an imposter syndrome. I don't belong. I'm not worthy. I'm not deserving. It may show up as perfectionism. It may show up as chronic people pleasing. It may show up as a continuous pattern of burnout, overwhelm, sprint, burnout, overwhelm, sprint. And all of this is founded upon or rooted in one cold, hard truth. In your mind, success is not safe. And this is what I mean. You, me, we human beings, long ago, we were incredibly more so than now a tribal species. Our ancestors' lives literally depended on being a part of a tribe. We needed to belong. And any type of behavior that risked being kicked out of this tribe induced a deep rooted sense of fear that served as a red flag to immediately stop that behavior, because the consequence would be abandonment, ostracization from the tribe. And if you were abandoned by your tribe, you lost shelter, you lost access to all of the bountiful berry bushes, the hunting grounds, and you inevitably died. One way, shape, form, or another, you either starved to death or that saber-toothed tiger inevitably had you for dinner. And as a result, and even though, again, we fast forward centuries and centuries later, this kind of seems silly and irrational and outdated. Well, again, it is irrational. This has programmed three core fears into our DNA. If you were judged for your behavior many, many years ago, the risk of being kicked out of your tribe exponentially increased. If your tribe abandoned you, well, again, it was just a matter of hours or days before your impending death. And if your tribe rejected you, well, ultimately you were abandoned. And again, saber-toothed tiger, had a great dinner, or you starved to death. So again, you've got these core fears, and the way that I organize or categorize them, as I just explained to keep it simple, is what I call the fear jar. We all have these core fears of judgment, abandonment, and rejection. Long ago, our survival was dependent upon this. Today, in the modern age, we still feel those fears more so than anything else. And when we now start connecting the dots back to what I opened with, that you're the one placing a cap, a limit on how much success you could have, we'll start thinking of this through a different lens. Arbitrary example. Let's say that your income is currently hovering around the $500,000 mark per year. How is your life different if suddenly you score $1 million the following year? Think about that for a second. First and foremost, to 2x your annual income, to cross this psychological threshold from 6 figures to 7 figures, to declare or be able to declare, I earned $1 million plus last year. That's next level success. That is next level success. Next level success demands an identity transformation. Your identity, as I talked about in the May episode, encompasses the way you talk to and about yourself. It encompasses your thoughts, your beliefs, your behaviors. And if you suddenly double your income year over year, your peer group inevitably, whether they want to admit it or not, or whether you want to acknowledge or not, may begin to feel some envy, resentment, frustration, jealousy, anger. So suddenly, whether real or not, you may begin to perceive tension in those relationships. And suddenly, there's a real threat here. You could lose your peer group. You could lose the relationships that actually played a strong catalytic role in your ability to scale at the rate that you did. And because you and myself are both tribal at our core, we long to belong. This hurts. This can lead to us walking back, inevitably having the big downfall, returning to 500K or even less the following year. Because suddenly those relationships are threatened. But even more, when we rise to this next level, there's a pressure put on us, whether by ourselves or others. Can I repeat this? Is this replicable? Is this scalable? Was this a fluke? Can I really do this again? Did I deserve this? How did this happen? And we get caught down the rabbit hole of all this negative thinking, second guessing, doubt growing louder and louder, that it consumes so much of your already finite energy supply. You have little energy left over to actually spend on what it is that empowered you to have that type of growth. Nonstop fucking action. I want to share an actual story from a client of mine. And I'm going to share two examples here to demonstrate how the upper limit problem exists in real time. One's going to be in the realm of money and success. One's going to be in the realm of health and weight loss, which, hear me loud and clear. If you're not practicing discipline with your nutrition, your exercise, all things under that self-care umbrella, that in and of itself is capping your ability to have the financial and impact success you desire. But hey, maybe that's a conversation for a future podcast episode on the inner game of real estate. So consider this example. One of my clients, had to hydrate. One of my clients was raised by a hardworking single mother. She often worked two jobs just to ensure the bills were paid and that food was on the table. And my client was very well aware from a young age just how hard her mom worked. She was also very aware, because she experienced it, she lived it, how intense the financial struggle was at times, how it was a struggle living paycheck to paycheck, constantly experiencing what it was like to get to the cash register at the grocery store and having to put food back, take it off of the checkout line because there was not enough money left in mom's purse or the bank account to pay for it. But even more was, as mom struggled to work these two jobs to provide for her daughter, mom had a really strong hatred towards people who had a lot of money. Mom often referred to them as rich, spoiled jerks, calling them assholes, unworthy. They were lucky. And what's very interesting is, as you can imagine, my client developed a tenacious work ethic from this experience. A lot of thick skin, strong-minded, clear, dedicated, and committed to not having to repeat that cycle for her own family down the road. And through her hard work and her entrepreneurial spirit, she began to earn one opportunity after the next to start making significant sums of money. And when she finally left her W-2 to go off on her own, to build her own real estate empire, she had a lot of success. Yet, as her income began to grow to levels she never once thought possible, suddenly she started to experience, whether real or imagined, a strain, a tension between her and her mother. And she began to notice backhanded, passive-aggressive comments from her mom about the way she spent her money, the way she spent her time. How dare she earn so much money? She's greedy. She's unappreciative. She's spoiled. And let's take a step back, again, connecting to one of the themes here, this upper limit problem. is rooted in not feeling safe, experiencing next level income, success, or happiness. So, first and foremost, my client, well, she didn't want to turn into the person, the persona her mother had taught her to hate. Rich, spoiled jerks. Remember, those people with a lot of money, her whole upbringing, she was told they were assholes. Well, suddenly she found herself, by definition, turning into an asshole just because she made a good chunk of money. So that deterred her. But second, there was a real threat to my client's relationship with her mom. And her mom was her everything. Again, remember, single parent raising her. Her entire livelihood was just her and her mom. And what do you think happened? Well, prior to working with me, my client endured a period in which not only did her income drop dramatically, her health started to suffer. She was hesitating, had to lay off one person after the next, struggled to hire, struggled to delegate, started playing small, started dimming her light, stuck in this anxious, timid, apprehensive state until we finally got in there, started uncovering what was happening, and started letting go of the patterns of feeling, thinking, believing, and behaving that were holding her back and empowering her to shine her light brightly, to reclaim her power and go build her real estate empire. And I'll give you another common example of where and how this upper limit problem manifests. And this is just kind of a general example of many, many client experiences I've worked with. But let's just imagine for a second you or somebody you know is part of a tight-knit family that spends a lot of quality time together. Growing up, however, this quality time often revolved around food, dining out, picking up fast food, cooking with grandma, baking with mom, eating in front of the TV. And as a result, this entire family, said person included, struggled with their weight, struggled with consistently implementing healthy habits. And despite said individual's desire to improve his or her health, lose weight, they found themselves stuck in a cycle. They'd lose 20 pounds, maybe even 30 pounds, and inevitably they would regain it, if not more. Well, when we begin to look at this problem, not through the lens of it's a food problem or a willpower problem, that it's a safety problem, we can begin to develop and appreciate a different understanding for what's going on. Deep down, this individual wanted to make changes, but in order to make some of the healthy habit changes necessary to lose weight and keep it off for good, to feel, look, and become the best version of themselves, that meant different behaviors. Behaviors that didn't align with the behaviors of the people she loved and cared about deeply and spent the majority of her time with. So suddenly there's this friction, there's this absence, there's this judgment, this envy. And as you can see, this created an underlying tension, a fear that said person would be judged, rejected, and abandoned by her tribe. In this case, her tribe, her literal blood, her family. And this undercurrent, this invisible gravitational pull is what continued to cap her habits, cap her success, limit the sustainability of her efforts. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? You put this limitation on how much income, success, and happiness you can achieve because at the core of it, this next level success is an identity change. And this identity change is a threat to what your subconscious knows as safe, a threat to the core relationships in your life as a human being who is wired to belong. So I want you to ask yourself, how does your life change if you suddenly ascended into the category of next level income, success, or happiness? Well, again, as I alluded to earlier, on one hand, that's a hell of an accomplishment. You experience tremendous excitement, pride, and joy. On the other hand, there's pressure. There's responsibility, there's second guessing, uncertainty, the threat of losing relationships, strained relationships, and a change in expectations. And that's a lot. That becomes heavier, heavier, and heavier, especially if you don't feel safe because suddenly you feel isolated and alone. And you've heard one version of this cliche or another that success is lonely. Success is isolating. It's lonely at the top. And that's because the identity change forces you to keep leveling up when those around you might not keep up. And that's scary. And I want to give you another example as we start to now really unpack even further where this lack of safety, this lack of belief about how much love, success, income you feel you're deserving, worthy, and capable of achieving might come from. And I'm going to share what some of you may find as a bit of an out of the box example. I have a client that I work with who is a professional poker player. And regardless of how much or how little you know about poker, tournament poker in particular, I can tell you that when you enter a poker tournament, roughly 10% of the people get paid. So meaning if there's 1,000 entries in a poker tournament, only about 100 people actually earn any money. But the real money is in the top 1 to 3%. So again, you need to run really deep and outlast 97, 98% of the participants in order to make a decent chunk of change. Well, my client, before he started working with me, noticed a massive pattern. Every time he either got close to making the money or close to making that next level money, he completely bombed out. He made decisions and acted irrationally in ways he was just in utter disbelief after the fact. He felt out of control, operating on autopilot, and was experiencing these incredible emotional blowups that in hindsight he would look at and be like, what in the world? That's not me. I would never behave, think, or decide in that manner. Well, here's where things get interesting. As we began our work together, we were able to uncover the origin of why my client started to sabotage himself and blow up every time he got close to having this next level success. You see, my client grew up with a father who was not only absent and inconsistent, but a drunk. And he lived and grew up with his mother. But around the age of 7 or 8 years old, his father started coming back into the picture. And suddenly, his father was around more. He started picking him up from school every day. And when he would pick him up from school, he would take him back to his apartment. And he taught my client, again, 7 or 8 year old boy, how to play the game of chess. And my client was ecstatic. He's reconnected with his father. He's playing a game. He's having so much fun. And my client is sharp as a whip. He picks up chess very quickly. And within a matter of weeks, he starts to beat his dad. Not on occasion, but quite regularly. And after a few short weeks, not only is my client repeatedly, mercilessly just beating his dad on the chessboard, suddenly, his dad stops showing up. His dad's no longer there to pick him up from school. In fact, it would be another 7 years before my client ever saw his dad again. But in that moment, my client formed a protective belief. It's not safe to win. It's not safe to have success because the last time I did that, I lost my dad. I pushed my dad away. And the relationship between a young boy and his dad is indescribably important, valuable, necessary. And you and I can sit here and we can listen to this story and just kind of think that sounds irrational. That's crazy. But for that 7 or 8 year old boy, that relationship was everything. And because he endured an indescribable pain going through that experience, his subconscious made every necessary change it possibly could to protect him from ever having to endure pain like that again. So that story, that program was born. And we fast forward decades later, every time my client started to taste next level success, he blew up. And it wasn't until we did the work necessary to start unlearning that, creating safety around next level success, that my client not only started having deeper, more consistent, deep tournament runs, meaning he made more money, he started winning tournaments, one after the next, winning so much more money than he ever could have dreamt of because we were able to let go of that problem and overcome his upper limit problem. So what does that mean for you? Well, we need to take action. And in order to resolve a deep rooted problem, we need to rather enact a deep rooted solution. Yes, affirmations, positive self talk, having a growth mindset. These are all vital pieces of the getting unstuck puzzle, but they're not enough. We need to go deep, start dismantling the destructive mindset program that leaves you believing that you are not safe having next level success. And I'm going to share with you some action steps. So if you're not already taking notes, this is the time to do so. Some thought prompts to chew on, begin digesting, excellent journal prompts for those of you who are journalers. And I just want you to really begin gaining some clarity and attempting to infuse a dose of logic to the irrational fear you do feel around having next level success. I want you to get clear on where you are limiting yourself. Where perhaps do you feel you're putting forth so much time, effort, energy, yet it feels like you're spinning your wheels going nowhere, like a hamster trapped on a wheel? And I want you to ask yourself, how is remaining exactly where you are keeping you safe? How is remaining in this position helping you? And I know your first likely obvious answer is, well, Paul, it's fucking not helping me. I know, but remember, the subconscious is designed to keep you safe. What is it protecting you from? Not growing, not having more success, more money, more happiness. Get clear on this. And then begin to identify what fears, what beliefs, what stories are you telling yourself? What behaviors are you routinely engaged in that are facilitating this pattern of 2 steps forward and 3 steps back? And then allow yourself to go back in time. Where else in your life have you felt this way, run into a similar pattern? Who in your family, your friend group, or in your environment can you also observe as someone or something experiencing this same pattern? And as you're going through this process, just begin to notice through a lens of non-judgmental curiosity if there's a physical sensation present, an emotion strengthening throughout, maybe a heaviness in your shoulders, a tightness in your chest, knots in your stomach. Because this physical sensation is a stark signal and reminder that you're on to something. You're on the right track. And as you continue through this journey of self-awareness, looking inward, beginning to understand how remaining stuck in this current situation is helping you, we then have to go another step deeper. How would achieving next level success, earning more money, having more confidence, happiness, or love, getting clear on both how it would help and benefit you, and also equally getting clear on how it would hurt you or supposedly hurt you? What threat does next level success pose? And as you continue to go down through this, again, through a lens of non-judgmental curiosity, you're going to begin to identify the incongruencies. You're going to begin to see with more clarity than ever before the limiting beliefs you hold, the sabotaging stories you hold that aren't even your beliefs or stories. And you can start poking them, start prodding them, dismantling them. That's powerful because that frees up energy you can now put forth toward going after your goals, taking the bold action, going all in on yourself, committing ruthlessly, relentlessly, and consistently to achieving your goals. And it's through this type of work that you can begin to cultivate a profound sense of safety, enabling you to pursue and achieve your biggest dreams. Yes, this process takes time, takes patience, commitment, and consistency. But the transformation it brings is invaluable. And what is the journey of entrepreneurship but a mirror of your own personal development journey? As I alluded to in the last Thursday episode, I believe that came out on May 29th, who do you need to become to achieve your goals? So aptly fits into this discussion as we begin to wrap everything up. Who do you need to become to achieve this next level of success? What needs to be done to cultivate a deep sense of safety in achieving next level success? And as a mindset coach and high performance hypnotherapist, I use hypnosis to help my clients reframe and release negative emotions associated with these patterns of childhood or periods of childhood in which these patterns, this lack of safety was developed, and ultimately begin unlearning and releasing these outdated programs and patterns so that they can experience a massive boost in energy, clarity, and confidence that begins to permeate into every corner, every aspect of their life. I thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the inner game of real estate success. If today's episode helped shift your mindset or gave you a new perspective, I'd love for you to share it with another realtor, a broker, someone in your inner circle who's ready to go and grow. And if you're ready to go deeper and eliminate what's holding you back once and for all to break through that invisible cap you've placed on yourself, well, I invite you to schedule a mindset coaching discovery call with me. There's a link in the show notes below. We'll have a wonderful conversation and we'll get to the crux of what's holding you back so you can get unstuck, out of your own way, and achieve your full potential. Until next time, keep showing up, stay grounded, and remember, your greatest edge is the one between your ears.